For 24 years, Judge Clara Blackwell ruled her courtroom with an iron fist, silencing lawyers and breaking careers. But on one fateful day, a man walked in who was determined to change the game, and he did it in front of her, in her very own court. The air in the courtroom was thick, not from the stifling heat outside, but from a pervasive feeling of dread, a sense that something long ignored was finally being uncovered. Those who stepped into the Kingford County Court in Charleston, South Carolina, knew the unspoken rules. Judge Blackwell had always been a force to be reckoned with. She sat at the bench with a cold, detached demeanor, never lifting her eyes from the case files unless she needed to crush someone. Her gaze alone was enough to make seasoned attorneys falter. She rarely raised her voice, yet her controlled tone commanded total obedience. For nearly a quarter of a century, she had shaped her legacy, a legacy that wasn't etched on plaques, but rather whispered behind closed doors and in hushed meetings. Attorneys, particularly those from marginalized communities, knew what to expect when their cases appeared before her. Her rulings were predictable. Her decisions frequently followed a pattern that nobody dared challenge. And today, that pattern was going to be tested. Marcus Wright, a battle-hardened defense attorney, stepped into the courtroom. His leather shoes clicked crisply on the tiled floor. This wasn't his first time in Blackwell's court, but today, he wasn't just another lawyer. Today, he had a plan, and it wasn't one Blackwell had seen before. Marcus was 45, a lawyer who had built his reputation by defending those society had given up on. His name was known far beyond Charleston, and his track record of taking down cases that seemed impenetrable made him a thorn in the side of people like Judge Blackwell. But what he didn't expect was the intense animosity in her eyes the moment he walked up to the defense table. She despised him not for his client, not for any specific case, but simply because of who he was. Marcus could feel the pressure building. This wasn't about his client, Alan Fisher, a man wrongfully accused of armed robbery. This wasn't just about proving Alan's innocence. It was about something much bigger, and Marcus was determined to make that clear. "Mr. Wright," Judge Blackwell said, barely glancing at him while she skimmed through papers. "You're already on thin ice today. Don't waste my time." It was an odd remark. They hadn't even started yet. But Marcus gripped his briefcase a little tighter, his face unreadable. "I'll do my best, Your Honor," he responded, his voice calm but firm. The judge gave a slight smirk. "Good, because I'm in no mood for theatrics." She turned to the prosecution, a young, overzealous district attorney named Kyle Simmons, freshly out of law school and eager to prove himself. "The state is ready, Your Honor," Kyle said, giving Marcus an arrogant glance. Of course, they were ready. The system had always worked in their favor when the accused was someone like Alan. Alan sat quietly at the defense table, his posture slumped, as though the weight of countless arrests had already crushed his spirit. Marcus leaned over and whispered, loud enough for the room to hear. "We're ready too," he said, his voice steady. Judge Blackwell sighed through her nose. "Let's get this over with," she muttered, barely masking her impatience. And so, the trial began, but quickly became clear this was no trial. It was a show, and Judge Blackwell was the star. Every objection Marcus raised was swiftly dismissed. Whenever Kyle faltered, Judge Blackwell stepped in, guiding him like a professor tutoring her favorite student. The jury noticed, the gallery noticed, but nobody dared speak up, except Marcus. He studied the judge closely, watching the way her lips curled in disdain each time he made a point. It wasn't just bias. It was something more personal, something deeper, and Marcus had been preparing for it. In this courtroom, Blackwell didn't even try to disguise her favoritism. Every time Marcus spoke, she cut him off. Every valid argument he presented was dismissed like it was inconsequential. But what the courtroom didn't know was that Marcus had planned for this moment. He wasn't going to let her off so easily. He saw the discomfort in the jury, the subtle shifts in their seats. Even the white jurors, who may have had their own biases, couldn't ignore the tension in the room. Blackwell, however, didn't care. She dug her heels in, her voice growing more biting with every passing moment. "Mr. Wright, you're pushing your luck." Mr. Wright, if you make another baseless objection, I'll hold you in contempt. Mr. Wright, this isn't a public debate. If you want to lecture, take it somewhere else. Marcus stayed calm. He had to. Inside, though, he was boiling. Not because she was belittling him, but because she was making it personal, a mistake she would soon regret. But he needed her to keep talking, keep revealing herself. Your Honor, Marcus said, his voice even. The prosecution just introduced new evidence that was never disclosed in discovery. This is a violation of due process. I motion for an immediate mistrial. Judge Blackwell barely moved, adjusting her glasses with exaggerated disinterest. Denied. Marcus didn't flinch. This was part of the plan. He let the silence hang in the air before speaking again. So, to be clear, Your Honor, you're refusing to acknowledge a legal violation? Her lips curled slightly. I said denied. The tension in the room shifted. The reporters at the back scribbled furiously. The whispers grew louder. And for the first time, Blackwell looked directly at him. You're walking a dangerous line, Mr. Wright. Marcus tilted his head, his gaze steady. For what, Your Honor? Asking the court to follow the law. With a violent slam of her gavel, Judge Blackwell's frustration echoed through the room. Enough, she barked. One more word, and I'll have you removed. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence, but Marcus wasn't nervous. This was exactly what he had wanted. Alan, sitting beside him, clenched his fists under the table. Don't let her do this to you, Alan muttered under his breath. Marcus didn't even glance over. I have nothing further, Your Honor, he said smoothly, settling back into his seat. Judge Blackwell scoffed, thinking she had won. But what she didn't realize was that she had just walked right into Marcus's trap. The jury exchanged uneasy glances. The whispers in the gallery grew louder, and even the reporters seemed to sense the shift in power. They all knew it now. Judge Blackwell had revealed herself, and Marcus was just getting started. But Blackwell wasn't about to back down. Sitting up straighter, she turned to the prosecution. Mr. Simmons, continue with your questioning. Cal cleared his throat, visibly rattled. He wasn't dumb. He knew what was happening. Yes, Your Honor. He turned to the witness, stand where a nervous-looking store clerk sat. Mr. Harris, can you confirm that the defendant, Alan Fisher, was the person you saw at the scene of the alleged robbery? The witness hesitated, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Marcus leaned forward, watching intently. He had seen this hesitation before, a sure sign the witness was unsure of their testimony. Answer the question, Blackwell snapped. The witness hesitated again before muttering, I think so. Marcus rose immediately. Objection, Your Honor. That is not a definitive answer. The courtroom was electric with tension, and Marcus knew the tide had turned. Judge Blackwell's arrogance had created cracks in her facade, and every misstep she made only exposed her biases further. The jury could feel it, and so could the gallery. It was no longer just about Alan Fisher's case. It was about a system that had failed too many for too long. Marcus had played his hand masterfully, and now, with one final objection, he had set the stage for the truth to come out. This wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning, and Marcus was ready for whatever came next.